Hey YouTube, welcome back to Universe X, and today, after multiple days of straight up burnout due to work, my normal not sleeping plus an increased schedule, me trying to fix some things, changing my workout schedule, I was burnt out. But you know what? We're refreshed. We are now towards the weekend, which I have off. We've been able to go through the week successfully, got my hair trimmed up, retwisted, I'm lean, I'm mean, I'm ready to but seriously, on a less silly note, we got a lot to talk about today. And by a lot to talk about, this is gonna be one of my deep dive videos. I have found that some of my favorite content, some of the content that you guys seem to receive the most or best, are the pieces where I go into some really deep dives and takes for the game. So today, as the title would suggest, we are going to get into the shifts in power come this ban list and this new set coming up. We're gonna start off with red because that is technically the first color. And I do want to say that if you guys like the content, or get to the end of the video and like the content, think about going down there, hitting that like button so the video trends, that subscribe button, notification button so you don't miss a beat here in Universe X, and hopefully enjoy the show. But right before we get into the nitty gritty, just want to say the normal. If you haven't already been by the official Facebook group, you should try actually checking it out because it's where you get all these official announcements like the ban list that influence this video, as well as the spoilers that also influence this video. Past that, you can also go to the unofficial discussion group as well as the unofficial Reddit, as well as the Universe X Discord, where we talk about a whole bunch of things that don't actually have to be the card game. They can just be anime or gaming in general, it really depends. However, now that we're past that, we're going to jump into, the smaller of the two. And sorry if my cats kind of go crazy in the background, they got the late night zoomies. Sorry about the change of scenery, change of clothing, but I was actually editing and I realized that I could do a lot of this video better. So, you know what we're gonna do? A lot of this video better. So, as I was saying, we're gonna talk about the smaller of the two changes first, and that is piano. Piano is an integral part, or was an integral part, of King Piccolo because of what it allowed you to amass in terms of hand advantage. For those that don't know, Piano's effect says that once per turn, whenever you would add a card, a face-up card to your life from anywhere but your life, you are going to draw a card. And so basically, in conjunction with King Piccolo's leader effect, what you're going to be doing is King Piccolo's leader effect says that once per turn, when you combo, at least on his awakened side, you can add the top card to your life, or your deck to your life face up, and then you can combo with one Demon Realm or Namekian. Now, what this is going to do is cause a draw with Piano, and this actually really boosts the economy of your, just hand advantage in King Piccolo, because on your turn, you're going to be drawing once per turn, you're going to be drawing once for your +1 with the Piccolo Jr. unison, and you're going to be drawing a third time with Piano just for comboing with your leader effect. Then on your opponent's turn, you're going to be drawing another time, making a full 4 cards per round turn. And that's a lot of cycling, especially seeing that your leader twice per round turn is going to be flipping a card from your deck to your life. And if you really do want it, you just pick it up when you take damage, whether you test in the op and you take your secret rare or a good card to your hand, or your opponent attacks you without crit and you're like, okay, yeah, that one is going to hand. It is what it is. So the deck was able to see a lot of cards, just a whole lot of cards. And people need to understand that the flipping to life is also acceleration. Yes, your opponent gets to see it and see when you pick it up, but it's still acceleration nonetheless. Getting rid of Piano severely hampers the deck's draw. But now we're going to get over to the limiting of Piccolo Jr., Descendant of the King. And when it comes to this card, you have to kind of understand what it does on a base level to understand what red lost as a whole. And it has a couple of marks that we need to touch upon. One, it's a 2-drop unison. And because it's a 2-drop unison, the only thing that comes out sooner is a 1-drop unison. 1-drop unisons generally have a hard time staying. I haven't really seen too many 1-drop red unisons that actually stay on board. Next set, that changes the GT, but that's a kind of in-theme thing. There's not really a generic 1-drop red unison that just doesn't get faded almost immediately. So 2-drops are kind of the safest reliable that red has, but red actually has a very strong unison package. One in Yamcha Merciless Barrage. That card is amazing, just a counter play, -2 things on your opponent's boards by 15k. And you've got Wolfang Fist, which is going to be a counter attack that you can use for free if you have a unison on board, and it's going to -15k through barrier on the attacking battle card, wiping out a lot of threats and actually kind of hurting your opponent when they try to swing on the 15k thinking that stuff is sweet. So between these two though, Yamcha is actually probably going to be the one I'm going to focus on a little bit more, and we're going to get to that. So the second part of Piccolo Jr. that's actually important is it's a constant +1 every turn it's on the board, because you're going to +1 it and you're going to draw a card. There's a couple other 2-drop red unisons that do this, but none of them that have the savageness that Piccolo Jr. has as a card. Now the third part I'm going to touch on, and arguably the part that makes people want to play this card above any other unison in red, is that it has an auto that says once per turn when or not once per turn, that's what people wanted it to be. It has an auto that says when your opponent activates a counter ability, you can KO one of their battle cards 15k or less. And this is crazy because this is incredibly offensive and defensive. I am a big advocate of letting people know that there are 2 types of hand control in this game. Hand control through effect, like Ribrianne, pay 2, your opponent discards 2, but hand control via pressure, which is when you get to the point where your opponent's at 4 or 3 life and they can't let any more attacks through. So any aggression you throw at them is just going to have them dropping cards for combo, dropping cards for negates, dropping cards for floodgates. And because of this, King Piccolo and any actual red deck that's aggressive can really double down on that, because your hand control through pressure becomes pseudo board control too, because they start having to put up their hands and counter you, and Piccolo Jr. unison is just popping their cards. And 15k is no small number. Like if it was 10k or less, the card wouldn't even be half as good, but because it's 15k or less, you're wiping out threats that could go neutral with your leader, automatically drawing at least 1 card from your hand to not take the damage. And that's a huge thing. Now, the bigger part of this that's crazy is like this comes up in so many situations. You swing, your opponent goes, I'm gonna floodgate you so that you can't swing well for the rest of the turn. You can't swing at all for this turn. Okay, well, let me pop one of your swingers that could have gone neutral into my face next turn. Let me pop the floodgate that may be a blocker when I want to go for game. That's another thing we're going to touch upon. They could play the counter blockers, take a life to counter attack, put out a blocker. Piccolo is going to look at that blocker and eat it, so that, oh, that second attack you're supposed to block by giving up a life? Finito, like gone. And Piccolo is also able to, you counter play something. You're like, okay, well, let me Yamcha you in a red mirror match. And then Piccolo goes, cool, you can -15k 2 of my things, but that Yamcha's gone. You're not swinging with it. And that's a huge thing. Piccolo was offensive, tearing your opponent's board apart, but it was also defensive in the sense that it made it so that you had to deal with less stuff on board when you passed your turn and they got a chance to swing. Now, combined with Yamcha Merciless Barrage, is the huge thing. In this game, there are no chains. You stack your abilities and you decide in which order they resolve. And so there are some really nasty plays. Let's say your opponent has a 15k and a 30k on board, and they counterplay one of your cards. Cool. Piccolo's going to activate because you have a counterplay. But because they counterplayed like a battle card in to do something, you have a window with Yamcha, and you can stack it so that you play Yamcha and go, you know what, that 15k -15k, that 30k -15k. Now that it's a 15k, I'm going to use Piccolo's effect to pop it. And you've gotten rid of a very strong swinger and a normal kind of just mid swinger with a free card and an auto that you were going to use anyway. So Piccolo's ceiling was just ridiculously high, and he got so much mileage. I'm not sure if there's another unison in the game that gets as much mileage as Piccolo does when your opponent is actually playing battle cards. So now that we're out of that, we got to talk about what Piccolo leaving the format will do. And I guess there is one more point. Piccolo can wipe the board. It's most effective in KP, or I guess technically GT themed decks too, where you can boost power, but GT has its own theme unison now, so that's not going to really be a thing. But in King Piccolo, you can use some of the King Piccolo cards to pump things like a Tambourine, and Tambourine get up to 35k, and then you can activate the -2 on Piccolo to select a 3 or less cost red battle card and nuke everything on your opponent's board that has equal to or less power. But for most red players, the 1-2 punch, like I used it so many times in Gen Con, is just to play King Piccolo New Ruler. He gets the boost for 5k, he goes up to 20k, you -2 on Piccolo Jr. Unison, and you wipe your opponent's board of 20k or less. Very powerful play, and literally, again, free. You just play the New Ruler and then just go crazy. So this is just one of the main reasons why this deck is so, or this card is so strong. He also has the ability to use Regenerate. That comes up so seldom, but it has come up. There have been some aggro matches where I put a Piccolo underneath my Piccolo, -2, pay 2, and got an extra life, knowing that I had the defenses to keep myself there. I just needed the extra padding. And that's actually pretty cool. So now that we are, losing 3 copies of Piccolo, you cannot rely on this card. He is not the force he once was. And that makes it so that other decks get a chance to breathe. Now you gotta look at so many cards that normally would not have survived the harsh winter. Now, wouldn't have survived Piccolo's auto, being able to hit the board. Mechanical Riposte in yellow is going to come down the gate, and you actually have to allot a Yamcha to it, which you may not, because Yamcha is such a good tool. When they start playing things that you actually don't want to get hit by, Yamcha is that dude. He's going to make sure that you soften the blow or that he kills the threat. So now you've got Riposte coming down and staying down. You've got Steadfast coming down and staying down. Every single blocker negate just side a breath of relief, because now that token is going to not immediately get smoked by a Unison's auto. You have things like the Android 14 Topo-esque effect that's coming down in a blue next set for the Gamma deck that will come down, and he's not just going to get smoked by an auto. You've got so many cards. Supreme Kai negate is going to come down and still actually be able to be 5k combo, and also, like I said, it's so defensive while it's offensive, because you're just tearing through your opponent's board, and this is something that's not just going to be a staple for red. Now, what does that mean for red as a color? It means that red is going to have a much harder time versus the mirror, because part of red's defense versus the mirror was the ability between Piccolo and Yamcha, and to just be trading bodies constantly. Some guys never even get to swing. They come down, they get Yamcha, your Piccolo kills their Yamcha, you're like, do I want to? Yeah, I'm gonna Yamcha off of your Yamcha and hit this, then hit this. And so now without Piccolo, you're gonna have to be very much so decisive about your counter plays, because Piccolo is not stemming that tide. So red versus red is going to be a lot more cerebral, and I don't mind that, because I always like thinking in games. I think it's just the better alternative. Then you have yellow being able to stick more of its blockers and more of its just, oh, I played a card, so I'm playing a card effects. Green kind of benefits off that. Now, black has a lot of small guys as well as a few come into play, so I think black eats off of Piccolo being limited to one very, very well. The only color that doesn't really eat off of it is blue, because blue either plays a bunch of stuff that doesn't matter for the most part, or they're playing things that Piccolo could never even touch anyway. So I think that it's really yellow, black, and green, and the red opposing decks that benefit off of them much. Blue's just kind of whatever. But that being said, the main shift that we're going to see is that U7 no longer has the ability to play a Piccolo build with Yamchas or a 3-drop build with Jiren and Videls. They are pretty much de facto going to be Jiren and Videls now, because there's no other way for them to play. And this is going to change the style a lot. I personally think that Piccolo doesn't cover the same holes that Jiren did. I think that Jiren does more for the deck. I'm always kind of a person where it's like, if you're gonna double down on effects, it needs to be so redundant and so powerful that it's ignorant. And I don't think Piccolo slotting into U7 fit that category. I think it was good because Piccolo is just generically a powerhouse, but I don't think that it, look, you have a training wheels deck like U7 Goku. No offense to anybody that plays it, but the deck does play itself. And if you're a good player, you can push that deck to its limits. But even if you're not a good player, you're going to be seeing some sort of success because the deck is very strong. Combine that with a auto unison, or unison with an auto that just blows out your opponent the way it does. Yeah, and you're looking at a deck with an even greater asset that just be going in regardless of like skill cap. So I think that Piccolo is just going to see success because it was just a good unison. But now that it's gone, you know, you're going to be playing the Jiren thing, and the Jiren Videl build I think has a much higher ceiling. Using Jiren Videl, your opponent can't even play secret rares against you if you've got one energy up to Jiren on the field, because your secret rare is going to get faded moments after hitting the board, even if it's got deflate, because all these things are coming from autos. The counter abilities are to play the Videl, to play the counterplay Goku, and then their autos are to minus things. So we're going to see a shift, and so you're going to know what to expect. You want to guess high or low with U7. It's going to be a 3-drop build. Past that, red decks in general are probably going to take a little bit of a kick because Piccolo Jr. carried a lot of red decks. It added draw power to any red deck. It added a defensive and offensive destructive auto, and so now you're not going to be able to necessarily hide behind that. Now some decks don't really get affected by this. Some decks used unisons that weren't Piccolo anyway. Like you had the Bardock's crew that was actually using the Mass Sand. You have Gohans that were using Frieza. So Piccolo may not kill red being limited, but Piccolo does hurt a lot of red decks that were just already kind of thriving off of how powerful he was. So yeah, that's the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this deeper dive into red and how it was affected by this ban list. Let me know how you feel about this kind of format of video, and as long as the responses are good, we're going to move into the next color for shifts in power. So thank you guys for joining Universe X. I think I'm going to go to a pre-release today and have a box opening for Digimon. So if you have any Digimon friends that like the channel, just tell them to look out for Universe X tomorrow. And I'll do some advertising where I can. So yeah, thank you guys for coming to Universe X. I will see you the next time you decide to join. And if you like the content, think about joining the Uni X fam. And I'll see you next time. Later.